This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China says goal realized of a moderately prosperous society. Rife COVID-19 variants fuel Africa's surging wave. And Libya talks continue in Geneva to pave the way for December elections. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, only on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. Ramanyang also joins me now with your business headlines.
That's right, Mahia. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour. An oil deal hangs in the balance as key members of OPEC and its allies disagree. And Nigeria is set to start construction of a $1.2 billion rail line linking the northern cities of Kano and Kaduna. We'll have the details on those stories and plenty more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Mahia.
Rama, thank you. We begin the top of the hour in China. The country says it has met another milestone in its economic development. As the Communist Party marks 100 years, it announced the achievement of its first centenary goal of building a moderately prosperous society. Let's have a look at what this means for China and its people.
What is Xiaokang society and how is it measured? Xiaokang society means building a moderately prosperous society in all respects. The concept is measured in multiple aspects, including economic, political, cultural, scientific, and ecological developments. China officially set the goal of achieving a Xiaokang society during the 12th National Congress of the CPC in 1982. One target was to double the country's 2010 GDP and per capita disposable income by 2020. Last year, it achieved that goal. GDP increased from around 40 trillion yuan in 2010 to more than 100 trillion yuan, about $15.4 trillion in 2020. Its per capita disposable income hit over 32,000 yuan, nearly $5,000, double the level in 2010. In addition to these economic developments, China has developed the world's largest social security system and boasts the world's biggest middle-income group, with around 400 million people. It has also significantly increased the education level of the entire population. In 2010, the number of people with a university education was nearly 9,000 per 100,000 people on the Chinese mainland. That rose to over 15,000 in 2020. China also ranked 85th on the UN Human Development Index in 2018. The index measures average achievement in 3 areas of human development: a long and healthy life, knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Eradicating poverty has been one of the greatest challenges in China's goal of building a moderately prosperous society. Over the past 40 years, about 770 million people have been lifted out of extreme poverty, meeting the poverty eradication target set in the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, 10 years ahead of schedule.
Meanwhile, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi gave a speech in Cairo on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. Let's take a look.
Your Majesty Xi Jinping, Secretary General of the Chinese Communist Party, the President of China, it gives me honor and appreciation to extend my deep to congratulate the Chinese people on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Communist Party, this great party that led China successfully, secured independence and developed the modern China since 1949. It has been leading the country by wise policies and achieved the Chinese miracle that made China to be one of the superpowers in the whole world. It reflects the significance of the Chinese civilization, and it is a driver for development. The Chinese experience is considered a successful example to be followed by others and to be considered and studied by other countries. The party succeeded under your leadership to achieve great successes, and we congratulate you for this achievement. The first achievement is the developed country, and this is a reflection of the sincere leadership, the determination of the Chinese people. Your Majesty, I pledged with you in different meetings to push forward our friendship relations, and today we are seeking to promote our strategic relations to achieve better results. COVID-19 pandemic proved that cooperation among countries, the ability to develop integration at different levels is a main factor to secure stability in the international community, and we are joining efforts together to achieve more successful experiences, and we are supporting the national efforts to overcome the international challenges. And I pay a tribute to efforts exerted by Chinese government in cooperation with the Egyptian government to face off the COVID-19 pandemic. Your Majesty, if we consider the history, we can remember that the first national conference of the Chinese Communist Party, which comes at the same date of the Egyptian Revolution in 1952, and the party was established in 1920. This revolution paved the way to develop the country and develop the liberalization of different African countries. Egypt was the first African and Arab country in the Mediterranean region to recognize the Chinese Republic, the achievement of the Chinese party, and establish the relations with China. And this year we will congratulate, we will celebrate the anniversary of 65 years of this relation. And again, I congratulate Your Majesty, the Chinese people, on the occasion of the Chinese Revolution, and I convey the greetings of the Egyptian people to you on that occasion, and we pray to God to keep our countries safe and to keep our people safe, and peace be upon you all.
Now let's take a look at reactions from around the world. In North Africa, Yasser Hakim spoke with Sarah Kira, who is an international relations specialist as well as founder and director of the European North African Center for Research. Kira spoke about the feedback to Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech on the centenary.
China has succeeded on both domestic level and international relations level. In the domestic level, we have seen the development taking place around all sectors in China, and being very silent about its experiment and being very progressive on it. International relations level, China has a very impressive role in peace building and development. And it's very important for countries of Africa and for Egypt, of course. Egypt is the most important strategic partner of China in the Mediterranean. China now being already declared as a superpower, and apparently the balance of powers in the world is shifting towards Peking. So today we see a regional power in a strategic partnership, a very good strategic partnership built on development and peace building in the region with China. This is quite a new experiment to the whole international community. The future will hold a lot of tensions with other superpowers, great and deeper strategic partnerships with countries like Egypt, and more of maybe trade war, currency wars, as we witnessed starting from 2009 with the US in business and financing, in economy, in development. That will be very hard to push against.
Now, Zimbabwe's ruling party, ZANU-PF, has spoken highly of General Secretary Xi Jinping's speech at the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China.
ZANU-PF has praised the Communist Party of China as it marked the centenary of its founding on Thursday. Ties between Zimbabwe and China have deepened since the southern African country gained independence from Britain 41 years ago. Albert Mpofu, who is the Secretary for Administration in the ruling party in Zimbabwe, says China's growth over the past 100 years is impressive.
See, the first impression I get each time I go to China is that it is a fast-growing economy. This is due to the progressive and clear ideological thrust that the Chinese leadership has embarked upon. See, we've been going through your successive leadership, and now you have the most progressive and ideologically clear leader, Xi Jinping, president, who we draw a lot of inspirations from. We've learned a lot, we read a lot about his vision, his ideals, which are current. They address the current trends happening in the world. And the manner this Communist Party administers its socio-economic, political activities is beyond any other policies that I've seen around the world.
Mpofu believes that under the leadership of the CPC, China has set an example for many African countries, including Zimbabwe.
There is a clear commitment by the Chinese people to what they are doing. They believe in what they are doing. And this is the orientation they get from the leadership, which is a leadership that has got foresight, vision to develop its economy. So the CPC is playing a major role because it is the one that guides the implementation of all the policies and decisions that the party will have come up with. And you also get new ideas from the leadership. And this is not only from the central government, but even from the provincial governments. There is equal development everywhere. And this development addresses the aspirations of the people. So to us, China is not only a good friend, but also an inspirational friend in its way of doing things.
China has taken a leading role in modernizing Zimbabwe's agriculture, telecommunications and mining sectors. The two countries have cooperation agreements in education, science and health. Noktula Shabalala, CGTN.
And South Africa joined in centenary celebrations for China's ruling Communist Party. The Chinese embassy in Pretoria held a digital reception with several political leaders. On the momentous 100-year commemoration, China committed to working for world peace, development and order. It also laid out plans for the second centenary, among them firm support for economic and human development in Africa. CGTN's Julie Shire now reports.
The Communist Party of China turned 100, marking the occasion with elaborate celebrations. South African political leaders joined the world in a digital commemoration.
We also pay homage to the founding father of the Chinese Communist Revolution and founder of the CPC, Mao Zedong, who was not only responsible for countless political initiatives that transformed China and its future engagement with the world, but who also led the fight against class distinction
The CPC has led the country since 1949, when China was poorer than many African countries. It's become the only country in the world to eradicate poverty, something the developing world is still battling with.
It takes a dedicated and disciplined political leadership that is guided by a well-thought-out plan to have a fully functional government that is results-driven. We have for some years been struggling to reboot our sluggish economy. We have not been able to fully arrest some of the poverty, especially in the rural areas.
Since President Xi Jinping took office in 2013, he's placed great emphasis on China's relations with Africa.
He has visited Africa 4 times, including 3 states visits to South Africa. In 2015 and 2018, our 2 presidents co-chaired 2 historical FOCAC summits held in Johannesburg and Beijing, respectively. The 10 cooperation plans and 8 major initiatives of China-Africa relations have helped Africa achieve long-term stability and sustainable development.
It's time for the next chapter. China has committed to standing by South Africa and other countries, especially as the continent battles COVID-19.
We welcome all countries, including Africa, to get on board the bullet train China developed. We are ready to deepen the exchange of experience in governance so that all countries could explore development paths in line with one's own national condition.
China is working to deliver a new vision and to build a development paradigm over the next 100 years for countries around the world to share opportunities. Julie Shara, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
The World Health Organization Africa region has warned the new and faster spreading COVID-19 variants are fueling Africa's surging 3rd wave. The World Health Body says cases in Africa have increased for 6 weeks running now, rising by 25%. CGTN's Daniel Arap-Moi reports.
With case numbers doubling in Africa, focus is fast turning to the new spreading variants. The Delta variant is reportedly spreading to a growing number of countries. The variant has so far been reported in 16 African countries, including 9 with surging cases.
With the rampant spread of more contagious variants, the threat to Africa rises to a whole new level. Among the 14 African countries now in resurgence, 12 have detected variants of concern, including 9 with the Delta variant. WHO was supporting countries to track variants in coordination with a network of reference laboratories.
In Uganda, the Delta variant has been detected in 97% of samples sequenced and 79% in the DRC. 66% of all severe illness in people younger than 45 years in Uganda is being attributed to the Delta variant.
Some evidence also suggests that the Delta variant is linked to people experiencing longer or more severe illness. This is consistent with devastating news being reported in countries of scores of patients dying due to a lack of oxygen supplies.
With rising case numbers and hospitalizations, the World Health Organization estimates that oxygen demand in Africa could rise above 50%. The World Health Organization has made a call for everyone to act now and boost preventive measures to stop an emergency becoming a tragedy. Daniel Arap-Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Now, leprosy is an endemic disease in Nigeria and is becoming an increasing public health concern as the country is faced with tackling the COVID-19 pandemic at the same time. At a United Nations Human Rights Council session, which began in June and will run till mid-July, human rights abuses of people affected by leprosy are being addressed. Some non-governmental organizations are calling on Nigerian authorities to step up and do more to reduce the scourge of leprosy. Our correspondent Phil Ihaza tells us more from the capital, Abuja.
38-year-old Peter Iyuki has been affected by leprosy since he was 6. Peter says life has not been easy after losing his job last year.
I was working with a missionary hospital But as of last year, January, I was sacked from the hospital because of the COVID. They say that as COVID have come, they are not any money as before, so they will not be able to keep some of the staff. So they dropped some of us.
According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, over 3,500 people get infected with leprosy every year in Nigeria. It's a bacterial infection that, if not treated early, can damage the nervous system and cause loss of muscle function, numbness, deformity, and even paralysis. Due to stigmatization towards people affected with leprosy in rural areas, many patients are often cast out from their communities.
Lepers here say their plight has worsened since the advent of COVID-19, especially with job losses, disruption of medication, food and other relief materials. Many say they've been forced to turn to begging so they can survive.
And that's why some non-governmental organizations like the Leprosy Mission Nigeria are doing their bit to assist them.
What we do for people who already have leprosy like this, we do empowerment and livelihood. And what that simply means is that we do vocational trainings for people like this, and we do skill acquisitions. And at some point, after the training, we give them setup materials, sometimes funds, and sometimes we buy maybe sewing machines, and some of them who go into plumbing and all that. We just get them to start up something.
But they say more needs to be done for patients.
Our support is not enough, the ones we have been doing so far. So we need more support from the federal government so as to help us to bridge that gap, in terms of vocational training. Stigmatization is a very huge issue. If the government it's all about sensitization, public awareness campaign. It should not be a one-off thing. It should be a continuous thing.
President Muhammadu Buhari passed a disability bill in 2019 that criminalizes discrimination against people with disabilities and enforces their rights and privileges to education, healthcare, and accommodation. But until the effect of the bill is felt by people like Peter, life remains difficult. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. Stay with us as we take a short break. Here's what's coming up on the other side. Libya talks continue in Geneva to pave the way for December elections. And Kenya reports a drastic rise in teenage pregnancies.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Now, Libya delegates have been meeting this week in Geneva for UN-facilitated talks. Around 75 representatives from the Libyan government and its rival administrations are attending the talks. Their aim is to create the legal conditions for presidential and parliamentary elections, which are scheduled for December. The UN envoy to Libya says delegates should not leave Geneva without reaching a constitutional agreement. In the event that consensus cannot be reached, the UN envoy has urged delegates to vote on the proposal. Since October, Libya's warring factions have stuck to a historic ceasefire that ended months of violence there. Libyans hope the ballot will usher in peace and stability for the North African country. Well, the U.S. has been in talks with key actors in Libya over the withdrawal of foreign forces ahead of elections planned for December this year. Libya has suffered a decade of chaos and violence since a 2011 NATO-backed uprising ousted the then head of state, Muammar Gaddafi. CGTN's Daniel Arap Moi now reports.
Libya has experienced a massive influx of foreign fighters since 2011. The United Nations estimates that at least 20,000 foreign fighters and mercenaries are present in Libya. The country's unity government is now seeking international support for their withdrawal.
Libya is a positive example in the international arena that we are able to solve conflicts with political means. Hence, the development of Libya in the last couple of months was a positive one. The ceasefire is holding, and today we want to make sure that this continues to be the case.
The call for departure of the mercenaries is said to be essential for the Libyan state to assert its sovereignty. Foreign fighters present in Tripoli include Syrians, Russians, Sudanese and Chadians. Many other groups have since tried to take control of Libya, using private military contractors to bolster their fighting forces. According to the United Nations, Libya's neighbor Tunisia has contributed the largest number of foreign fighters. Libya has been split between rival East and West-based administrations, each backed by armed groups and foreign governments. But now there is a new unity government led by interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deibar. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Now, a worrying increase in teenage pregnancies is emerging amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Kenya is among the countries that have seen a dramatic rise in these cases, in Kilifi, a town on the Kenyan coast, being among the worst affected. Still, driven by a desire for education, many girls will carry the pregnancy through school or even return as young mothers. CGTN's Nick Mudimba has more.
An ordinary weekly assembly. Only that some of the attendees at Kathama Primary School in Kenya's Kilifi County are not your ordinary peoples. They're soon to be mothers. Others already mothers. 17-year-old Pamela Menza is one of them.
I got pregnant in June last year. I conceived when the pandemic hit. I gave birth and came back to school. I almost gave up coming back to school. My mother supported my return. In this situation, I only get to do my homework on Saturday and Sunday. At some point, I was demoralized after the return because I failed the exams, but my mother was my greatest supporter.
That much needed support, though, comes at a price. Every day, Pamela has to cut short her classes, rush home to breastfeed her baby. She also has to take care of her younger siblings, then return for the afternoon classes. Pamela's mother, Priscilla Mongo, knows it's not easy, but she's keen to see her daughter get an education.
My daughter got pregnant at grade 7. She was 16 years old. I was so sad. I questioned myself how she would turn out to be. But after consulting and also talking to her, I got the help and my daughter is now back to school.
Already, Kenya has acknowledged teenage pregnancy as a major challenge. In 2020, during the 3 months of lockdown, 152,000 teenage girls became pregnant, a 40% increase in the country's monthly average. Kilifi was one of the worst affected, with a 22% increase of teenage pregnancies. A lack of knowledge about sexual health and family planning are some of the factors blamed for the worrying figures. During our visit at Kathama Primary School, we spotted this girl. She wasn't comfortable to tell her story on camera, but she too is pregnant. Teachers here say due to stigma, many girls will hide the pregnancy. Others end up dropping out of school and get married. At just 16, Elena Mwalimu is a single mother. When she got pregnant, she dropped out of school and got married. But her young husband took off, leaving her with no option but to fend for her baby.
My parents were against my return to school. I apologized and went back. The challenges were many. I had to walk long distances to and from school. I came here to work due to the long, tough situation. I had to cater for the baby and my siblings because at the moment I have no work.
Elena, though, remains hopeful that the future could be anything including brighter. She wants to go back to school. For now, though, feeding her baby is a priority.
Societal pressure has pushed them back to school, back to the drawing board, hoping that one day they'll use this as a catapult to improve their lives. Right now, all they need is just the papers for them to progress carefully, and of course this time around with a lot of caution in their lives. Nick Mudimba, CGTN, Kilifi County, Kenya.
Now we continue our series about COVID-19 heroes in Africa. In Egypt, Yasser Hakim met with Ahmed Yahia, a 23-year-old truck driver based in Cairo. He recently bought his own truck to continue delivering goods during the pandemic.
I'm married and have one child, a 1.5-year-old son. I bought this vehicle 3 months ago to transport any products like furniture, as you can see here. When the coronavirus started, work slowed down. I only worked 3 days a week, not much. I would agree to any orders. Everyone was afraid of the coronavirus, so demand dropped. The good work during that period was in vegetables. Delivering to the markets was going well, especially vegetables. It was going well. I mix with a lot of people, so I wear the mask all the time. And I have the alcohol on me. I sanitize the products I deliver. I then sanitize myself before I go home and immediately take a shower at home to protect myself and my family. The most vulnerable are the ones in my line of work because we mix with many people in markets, apartments and villas, and we can catch the virus easily. Now things are better and work has increased. Thank God it's better. Before we worked 3 deliveries a week, now up to 5 deliveries a week. And it could be more than 1 delivery a day. Thank God. I don't think Corona will disappear. Everyone here says it will continue with us and maybe increase again. No one said it will disappear. Don't think it will end. I heard they are still opening registration for vaccination. I will register soon for myself and my family. I will apply for vaccination.
Well, it's just about time for the latest in business. Rama is back with the latest.
Thank you very much, Mahia. Here's what's coming up in business news. An oil deal hangs in the balance as key members of OPEC and its allies disagree. And Nigeria is set to start construction of a $1.2 billion rail line linking the northern cities of Kano and Kaduna.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start in the world of energy. Oil prices edged slightly lower on Friday after ministers from the OPEC Plus grouping delayed their output policy meeting. The Middle East-dominated group met on Thursday through a video conference to add roughly 2 million barrels per day of output to the market between the months of August and December. But that deal was thrown into disarray after the United Arab Emirates blocked the move at the last minute. Now, that dramatic turn of events leaves the market in limbo, just as inflationary pressures are fixating investors with oil above $75 a barrel. Global benchmark crude Brent settled at $75.84 barrel on Thursday, up at least $1.22. WTI crude, on the other hand, was up by almost $1.80, settling at $75.23. Now, during the session, both Brent and WTI reached the highest levels since October 2018. Ministers from the OPEC Plus grouping are expected to resume their meeting on Friday. In the meantime, Sudan has increased fuel prices for the first time since subsidies were removed. The move comes just days after the IMF granted the country a $2.5 billion loan. Sudan will get $1.4 billion immediately under this 39-month IMF program. The decision came after Sudan cleared about $1.4 billion in arrears that were due to the fund. The Washington-based lender adopted a program for Sudan just last year. As part of the program, it demanded that the government implement a range of austerity measures that includes the removal of some subsidies. Sudan fully liberalized gasoline and diesel prices back in June in line with these reforms, and that led to an immediate doubling in prices. Elsewhere, Nigeria is set to start construction of a $1.2 billion rail line that's linking the northern cities of Kano and Kaduna. According to the country's transport ministry, that route will be funded from the government budget, while Chinese financing is awaited. To date, Africa's largest economy, and its largest oil producer as well, has committed $280 million in funding for the project. It's set to provide another $100 million in funds. Construction is expected to start this July. Nigeria plans to spend tens of billions of dollars on its rail network in the years to come. $5 billion worth of projects have been flagged off this year alone. The government says the aim is to cut the spiraling cost of transporting goods, especially in bulk, around the country, and to also boost property values outside of Lagos and make travelling around the country a lot safer. On to East Africa now. The Tanzanian government has rolled out a $50 billion 5-year development plan that's aimed squarely at improving industrial production, creating a much more inclusive economy and boosting investment. That plan will also focus on finalizing the country's large infrastructure projects, and that covers everything from the standard gauge rail line that they're building now to the Nyerere hydropower dam. Here's CGTN's Daniel Kijo with this update.
Tanzania has launched the third phase of its 15-year development plan. It's a $50 billion national development initiative to chart the country's future. It will focus on providing high-quality livelihoods, good governance, ensuring the rule of law, as well as building a strong and competitive economy. The government says it means business.
We will not tolerate tax evasion, laziness at work, misuse of public funds, as well as corruption of any kind. The government will continue to embrace creativity and receive suggestions aimed at improving the implementation of the plan.
Tanzanian governments have steered its long-term vision through development plans since independence, but it's not always been able to hit its targets due to lack of funding, corruption, and mismanagement of projects. The current version is a 15-year long-range development plan. This is divided into 3 5-year plans which started in 2015. This recently launched third plan will end in 2025-2026. Under the leadership of late President John Magufuli, Tanzania achieved lower middle income status 5 years ahead of time. As the country starts its third development plan, it faces multiple challenges, including COVID-19, tax evasion, corruption, and lack of innovation. The plan will also focus on strengthening industrial production capacity and the provision of services. Funding for the plan will come from diverse sources, including soft loans, donor funds, grants, and government coffers. The United Nations Development Project head says they will support Tanzania in its development journey.
We as UN agencies promise to work together with the government in implementing this 5-year development plan.
The government says the plan will ensure the active participation of the private sector in creating 8 million new jobs between July 2021 and June 2026. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
On to Zimbabwe now. Large-scale gold miners there will be allowed to export part of their bullion directly instead of having to sell it to the central bank-owned Fidelity Printers and Refinery. The government says that gold worth $1.2 billion is illegally exported from the country every single year. But small-scale miners who extract a lot of the precious metal in the country, they blame a combination of low prices and late payments by state agencies for these leakages. CGTN's Mahia Mutua has the details from Harare.
Mining houses that increase production above their average monthly output will be allowed to export that additional portion directly. The move is expected to incentivize production, unlock finance and improve viability, which had been affected by low prices paid by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe-owned Fidelity Printers and Refinery, which up until now was the sole buyer of gold in the country. It has previously delayed payments to miners, which, coupled with the unattractive prices, has been cited for the revenue leakages in the sector. Government estimates that a whopping $1.2 billion worth of gold is smuggled out of the country every year. The central bank plans to unbundle Fidelity Printers and sell a stake in the refinery business to mining houses as part of measures to liberalize the sector. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
On to South Africa now. The country's liquor industry is looking at more job losses in the pipeline after a new alcohol ban. And that is the fourth such ban since March last year. Now, these restrictions are set to remain in place for at least 14 days. President Cyril Ramaphosa imposed the ban on the 27th of June as Africa's most industrialized economy continues to battle a third wave of COVID-19. From Johannesburg, here's CGTN's Sumitra Naidu.
It's a double blow to South Africa. The country is struggling with a massive rise in COVID infections and is having to deal with a battered economy struggling to get over the hard lockdowns of 2020. Over 7,400 people in the beer industry lost their jobs in the last year as a result of the 3 liquor bans. The industry is warning that more jobs will be lost on the back of this latest ban.
A lot of the craft breweries within our sector have barely survived the last 3 alcohol bans, and those who have made it past the 3 are just hanging on the last thread at the moment. A lot of businesses that have used a lot of their own savings to survive the 3 past bans are going to find it very, very difficult to get past this current ban.
The liquor industry is important to the South African economy, contributing around 4% to GDP. South Africans also love their beer. Beer accounts for over 70% of all alcohol consumed in the country.
All the orders that we had, obviously, they were cancelled, which means it will have a detrimental impact on our cash flow. We have gone ahead and bought raw materials, packaging materials in advance, based on the fact that we didn't anticipate another lockdown coming our way. It's going to be a difficult conversation with our suppliers in about 30 days from now when they come knocking for payment.
Last year, the beer industry lost $992 million in sales income. In turn, government lost $545 million in taxes and excise charges.
I think there will be a long-term effect. And I do think that opportunities within the brewing industry and the growth forecast for the brewing industry, it took a knock, and I think it's going to take us a couple of years to recover.
As an industry, we were just about to recover from the last ban, which happened in January, February. So this 4th ban comes a bit of a shock for us.
The liquor bans have had a devastating impact on the entire hospitality industry. It's a tough position, though. South Africa is battling a third wave of COVID while trying desperately to free up hospital capacity. Sumitra Naidu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
On to a global story now. As many as 130 economies representing roughly 90% of global GDP have apparently agreed on a global minimum corporate income tax rate of 15%. That deal was arrived at on Thursday after 2 days of talks hosted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD as it's more commonly known. The Paris-based organization says that 15% threshold could help provide an additional $150 billion in global tax revenue every year. Now, this new minimum tax, effectively, a tax floor, if you will apply to companies that have a turnover over $890 million. The shipping industry, for the time being, is the only sector that is being exempted. The combined GDP of G20 countries returned to pre-pandemic levels in the first quarter of the year. But the differences in recovery between members of that particular club are still pretty large. A study by the OECD shows that G20 economies as a whole grew by 0.8% quarter-on-quarter in Q1. Among G20 countries, the economies of China, India and Turkey surpassed their pre-pandemic levels in the final quarter of 2020, and they continue to grow into Q1 this year. Australia, South Korea and Brazil also got back to pre-pandemic levels in the first quarter of the year. For the remaining G20 economies, though, output remained below pre-pandemic levels. The United States, Italy, Indonesia, Canada, South Africa and Mexico, they all saw a bit of growth. On the other hand, Germany, the UK, Japan, Saudi Arabia, France and the EU, they all saw a contraction. All right, then I'll leave you there for the time being, but I'll be back at the top of the hour. In Global Business, we'll be looking at the business of housing. African housing ministers have designated a 40-year plan of action to invest in affordable housing initiatives on the continent. That resolution was made at the end of the Shelter Afrique AGM in Cameroon's city of Yaoundé. So the continent is clearly facing a housing problem, but does this solution actually fit? We'll explore that in a bit more at the top of the hour. See you then. For now, back to Mahia.
Rama, thank you. Well, still to come here on Africa Live. New pair of African painted dogs recently brought into Uganda.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Let's turn to Uganda, where a conservation project is hoping to bring back one of Africa's native species from the brink of extinction. A pair of African painted dogs was recently brought into the country. The wild canines were last seen in the country's parks almost a decade ago. CGTN's Leon Senyange now reports.
The 11-month-old African painted dogs arrived in June from South Africa. They are already comfortable in their new home at the CTC Conservation Center in central Uganda.
They have adapted very well and very quickly, and everything is going well so far. They're eating well and they're socializing with other animals around and getting to the environment, so they're really okay.
The canine species has not been seen in Uganda for close to a decade now. Experts say their endangered status has been caused by human conflict.
They were known to be very good hunters, and in so doing, of course, play a very fundamental role and ecological balance of the ecosystems. But largely, most of the decimation of the wildlife in Uganda can largely be attributed to human-wildlife conflict.
According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, African painted dogs are among the most endangered animals in Africa. Currently, somewhere between 3,000 and 5,500 individuals live in the wild. The largest populations are in Tanzania and northern Mozambique. These are the only known African painted dogs in Uganda. By offering them a safe haven, conservationists believe they can regain a foothold here. A breeding program is being planned for the pair. Thomas Price, the head of the Conservation Center, says that without such interventions, populations of these species may never naturally recover.
We do wish for them to breed so that we can increase their population here and then see if we can work together with UA and find suitable areas or suitable national parks where they can be reintroduced.
African painted dogs usually give birth to a litter of 2 to 20 pups. And while it will take some time to restore the numbers, these two dogs could be the start of a much bigger pack in the future. Leon Senyange, CGTN, Butambala, Central Uganda.
Right, and here's what's coming up in the sport. African teams arrive in Tokyo for the